My name is Dwi Puryati. I'm from School of Business EKUITAS, Bandung, Indonesia. Now I will presentation my research with title The Consequence of Whistleblowing System and Internal Control Toward Fraud Prevention Study on Indonesian State-Owned Enterprise 2020. I will presentation divide three topics. The first is introduction, the second literature review, and the last discussion and conclusion. Okay, we start of the first topic of introduction. Why we choose topic about fraud? Fraud is an interesting topic because until now there are still many fraud cases in the world, include Indonesia. Fraud is an intentional strategy to achieve a personal or organizational goal of human needs by deceit. The Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, or ICVE, was analyzed 2,504 cases of occupational fraud that were investigated between January 2018 and September 29. The damage could amount to trillions of dollars in loss each year. In Indonesia, fraud cases still often occur in various companies, either private companies or state-owned companies. Recent results from ICVE Global show that every year, 5% of organizational income in Indonesia is a victim of fraud. Figures show of the most common fraud occurring in Indonesia is corruption, followed by misuse of assets and misuse of financial statement. An organizational or institution that suffer loss due to fraud in Indonesia on the following. The figures show the most disadvantaged organization in this study, particularly the government by 48.5%, the state-owned enterprise by 31.8%, the private enterprise by 15.1%, the non-profit organization by 2.9%, and the other 1.7%. In state-owned enterprise, there are many cases of fraud, misuse of assets, and corruption. Fraud prevention can be executed through internal control mechanisms and whistleblowing system. Several previous studies related on this research have been conducted by Mirina Visin, Mizan Khairul, EKUITAS Nawawi Anwar, so that internal control affect fraud prevention. Moreover, research by Abret, Lee Gladys, Oguda, David Imang, Atmaja, and Latan Henke so that the whistleblowing system affect fraud prevention. The study will analyze the application of whistleblowing system, internal control, and fraud prevention in state-owned enterprise in Indonesia, and the effect of the whistleblowing system and internal control on fraud prevention in state-owned enterprise in Indonesia. Okay, we continue literature review. What is the fraud? Fraud is intentional acts or omission designed to deceive others, resulting in the victim suffering a loss and the perpetrator achieving gains. Three factors that encourage someone to commit fraud are identified as the fraud triangle. First, specifically pressure. For example, need for committing fraud or need for money. Second, opportunity. Opportunity is the situation that enables fraud to occur, often when internal control are weak or non-exist. The last is rationalization. Is the mindset of the fraudster that is justified then a commit fraud. The whistleblowing system is prime objective to secure and control potentially sensitive information that, if disclosed to legal authorities or the third parties, could endanger companies' interests. The ICVE Indonesia chapter survey showed that the hotline or whistleblowing system method is still a relatively effective means by preventing fraud with a percentage of 22.6%. The whistleblowing system has attracted the worst attention to the chain. Many big companies are cheating and finally being exposed. And the whistleblowing system is a system with a formal purpose for each company to secure and control sensitive information. Research before by Abret, Lee Gladys, Oguda, David Imang, Atmaja, and Latan Henki show that the whistleblowing system affects fraud prevention. And the first hypothesis in this research is whistleblowing system affect the prevention of fraud. What is internal control? Internal control is a process effected by entity board of direct management and other personnel designed to provide reasonable assurance regarding the achievement of objectives relating to operation, reporting, and compliance. Fraud prevention can be executed through internal control mechanism. ICFA Indonesia chapter states that internal control weakness are a factor in a company's occurrence of fraud. The general objective of management in design an effective internal control system are reliability of financial reporting, efficiency and effectiveness of operation, and compliance with law and regulation. Efficient and effective internal control is necessitated to prevent fraud. Internal control is crucial in detecting any financial fraud that becomes the risk of harming company. Research before by Miri Navisin, Mission Khairul EKUITAS Nawawi Anwar, which show that internal control affect fraud prevention. Show that, and there is a second hypothesis, internal control affect fraud prevention. Framework is used to my research is so that describe. For whistleblowing system, I use 3 indicators. For internal control, I use 5 indicators, and for fraud prevention, I use 4 indicators. Research methodology. I use research design is descriptive survey design to collect data from the key respondent on Indonesian state-owned enterprise. The study area was conducted in Bandung, West Java, Indonesia. Sample method. I use random sample technique was employed to select the key informant who were the internal audit whistleblower and the other department related to fraud in state-owned enterprise. There were 62 respondent samples out of the population of 122. The sample size we use solving method, and the data analysis we use regression analysis. Before we analyze data, we do validity and reliability tests. Based on the table, it can be concluded the first, all statements in the questionnaire study fit the validity test because value of error count greater than error table. And the second, the value of variable reliability is higher than 0.7. Therefore, all variables have fit the criteria of being reliable. And this study show that whistleblowing system, internal control, and fraud prevention applied to Indonesian state-owned enterprise is good category. Actual score that variable is the following. Whistleblowing system is 65.16, internal control is 65.4, and fraud prevention is 66.71. However, it still shows weakness in whistleblowing system, internal control, and fraud prevention in this study and required improvement. The classic assumption test result consisting of a normality test, multicollinearity test, and heteroscedasticity, we all meet fulfill with following result. The normality test using the Kolmogorov-Smirnov gives a significant value 0.516 greater than 0.05. It can be concluded that is normally distributed. And the independent variable tolerance value is more significant than 0.1 and the VIF value is than 10. Therefore, conclude there is no multicollinearity. And the last result of scatter plot test conclude no heteroscedasticity in the regression model. Multiple linear regression analysis. The regression equation model formed based on this table. Y is 494 plus 0.462 x1 plus 0.364 x2 plus E. And then based on the testing result, determination coefficient show that R value 0.727, there is a correlation between the independent variable and dependent variable of 72.7%. And the R square value is 0.520s, which implies that the variability, the dependent variable, particularly the prevention of fraud, which can be explained by independent variable whistleblowing system and internal control variable in the study, is 52.80%. In comparison, the remaining is explained by other variable outside the result model. Hypothesis testing. We use two tests as simultaneous and partially hypothesis testing. First, simultaneous hypothesis testing, or F-test. The F-test is a model of feasibility study or goodness of fit that must be performed in linear regression analysis. The result of simultaneous hypothesis testing was shown this table. The simultaneous significant value of the regression model is 0. This is a smaller than of significant level of 5%. The simultaneously, the whistleblowing system and internal control variable have a significant effect on the fraud prevention variable. The study's result is supported by a theoretical basis that said that fraud prevention is eliminating possibility or opportunities to commit fraud by developing and implementing risk management, internal control, and honest corporate governance. The second hypothesis test is a partial hypothesis test, or t-test. This test aims to present how to influence one independent variable individually in explaining the dependent variable. Based on the table, the partial testing result, significant value of the regression model to whistleblowing system and internal control are smaller than the significant level of 5%. It means partially the whistleblowing system variable has a significant effect on fraud prevention, and internal control variable has a significant effect on the fraud prevention variable. Whistleblowing system is a form of disclosure of violation or disclosure of action that are against the law, unethical or immoral action, or other action that can harm the organization committed by employees or organizational leader to the leader of the other organization who can exercise action for the violation. One way to prevent fraud pre-danger is by creating the whistleblowing system, which is a guideline for employees or other people to be able to complain concerning symptoms of fraud. The results of the study are in line with results of previous study conducted by Abret, Ligledis, Oguda, David Imang, Atmaja, and Latan Henki, which show that whistleblowing system affect fraud prevention. An internal control is a process to decide, implemented, and maintained by those charged with governance, management, or other personnel to provide adequate assurance regarding the achievement of the entity objective relating to reliability of financial statement, operating efficiency and effectiveness, and compliance with law and legislation. The correlation between internal control and fraud in the company is closely related. A good internal control one aims to make organizational activity effective and efficient. The result of the study support the result previous study conducted by Mirina Fisin, Misal Khairul, EKUITAS, Nawari Unwar, and etc., which state the internal control effect fraud prevention. Based on the result of research and discussion, I have two conclusions. The first, that the application of whistleblowing system internal control and fraud prevention at Indonesian state-owned enterprise is a good category. However, there are still several indicators have weakness and that need to be improved. And the second, whistleblowing system and internal control simultaneously and partially have a significant effect on fraud prevention in Indonesian state-owned enterprise in a positive direction. The higher the application of the whistleblowing system and internal control system, the higher the fraud prevention. This is the end of my presentation, and thank you for your attention.